If you've had a chance to try out the features demo game in the latest version of AnyRPG, you may have noticed that the vendors now talk to you.
Hello. Thanks.
Your character makes a sound when he jumps.
Huh?
The enemy will shout when he aggroes you.
You are nothing.
The enemy will shout when attacking, and your character will groan when taking damage. And your character will scream when he dies, as well as the enemy will have a victory shout. But what if you want to make your own character voices? Well, that's what we'll be covering in this tutorial. So let's get started. For this tutorial, I will be using AnyRPG Engine version 0.15, which is available as a free download from anyrpg.org/downloads in Unity package format. You can also use AnyRPG Core 0.15 or higher, which is available as a free download from the Unity Asset Store. I will also be using the following two free assets from the Asset Store: the Cabin Environment Free by Gregory Seguru, which just contains a nice environment with a cabin where we can stick some NPCs to try out the voices, as well as the Hero Character Voices Juggernaut Voice Pack for free by Cyberwave Orchestra. And this is a fantastic pack because it has not only a full merchant voice, but also some warrior voices as well. When you import the cabin asset, you will see some warnings in your console that the lighting data is incompatible with the current Unity version. We can just rebake the lighting to get rid of those warnings, as the cabin asset is a little bit old. To create this project, I will go to the Tools, AnyRPG Wizard, and New Game Wizard menu. I'll give the game a name of Voices, and for the first scene name, I'll just call that Cabin. I'll choose to copy existing scene, and from the cabin directory, I'll just pull in the demo scene. I'm going to leave everything else at default settings and make sure specifically that the Install Human Voices is checked. Then click Create and wait for the project to finish installing the template content and setting up the new game. Once the game has been set up, there are a few pieces of template content that I need to install by going to Tools, AnyRPG, Wizard, Template Content Wizard. First, I'll want to make sure, if I haven't already installed it, for example, if you're following along and you just want to do this in an existing game, that you are installing the Core Voice Profiles template package. If you do have the engine, you will see an Engine Voice Profiles template package, but that contains beast voices, not human voices, so we don't need to worry about that. I'll also need to install the enemy faction so that I can have one of my enemies actually be aggressive. Next, I will need to make sure that I am installing the Alchemy Vendor package. So we have the Alchemy Supplies Vendor Unit Template package so that we have a merchant in our game. Finally, I will need to install the character classes. So I'm going to choose All Character Classes template package, which will install all of the character classes. Next, I'll click Install and wait for the template content to complete the installation. Once the wizards are complete, there is some minor configuration we have to do on the scene. So we'll go to Window, Rendering, Lighting, and I'll just dock that up here. I'm going to make sure that real-time global illumination is checked, and you can see this warning message here about the old lighting data not being compatible. So I'm just going to click Generate Lighting and then wait for the lighting to finish generating. Next, I'm going to click on the Environment tab, and I'm just going to set the environment lighting to color. And I'm going to click on the color and just brighten it up a little bit, maybe to about a +2 there, to make the scene a little bit brighter. Next, let's go ahead and place some NPCs. To do that, I will look in the Games folder and find my Voices game. Then I'm going to go into the prefab folder here, and choose the unit spawn node character class. And over here, a little bit away from the cabin, I am going to place an enemy warrior. So I'll choose the UMA warrior unit spawn node and just drag it over there. Next, let's place some friendly NPCs. To do that, I will go to the unit spawn node interactable trainer, and we will pull the warrior class trainer unit spawn node over here. And let's just turn him around so that he's more facing the character. And inside the cabin, I am going to place a vendor. So let's grab under the interactable vendor folder the alchemy supplies vendor unit spawn node. Just drag it in here. Once again, turn it around so he's more facing the character. Finally, I will need to actually bake the nav mesh. So let's go to the window and under AI navigation, click on the Bake tab, and we do need to make sure that the terrain in this level is set to static. And in fact, let's also just click on all of the existing FBX files in the level. Make sure they're set to static as well. We can just click on Know this object only. And now when we bake the navigation mesh, we should end up with the navigation mesh looking like it's properly set up according to what objects you can and cannot walk through. Great, now let's just take a look at the warrior class trainer. Just make sure he's standing on the nav mesh. It's important that the NPCs are actually on this blue area. And then we'll look at the alchemy supplies vendor, and he's also standing on the nav mesh, so everything is great there. Next, we'll want to make the enemy actually able to attack us. So to do that, we're going to go to the unit profile and class. I'm just going to select all of the UMA units here, although realistically you only have to select the warrior. Under faction name, I'm going to click on the little arrow here, choose enemy, and close that, and that will make the enemy aggressive. I will also need to make sure that the warrior has a slightly lowered aggro radius, so under unit profile class UMA warrior unit, I'm just going to put the aggro radius down to 10 so that he doesn't jump on my character the minute that my character walks out the door of the cabin. Next, I'm going to give the warrior class trainer a few other options so that we can see the generic voices in action. To do that, I'm going to scroll down and find the inline interactable options here. Right now, he just has one option, which is the class change for warrior. I'm going to give him 3 options. We'll choose class change props for all of them. And I'll let him also train the priest as well as the mage class. This is necessary because in order for the generic sort of hello or what do you want voice to work, you do need more than one option so that you'll get the generic interaction window. Otherwise, it'll just jump straight into a class change screen and you won't actually hear the voice. Let's save the project and press play and see what that looks like. Once the game is loaded, we should be able to talk to the vendor.
Take a look around. Looking to buy something? How can I help you?
Let's go outside and talk to the warrior trainer.
How can I help you?
And you can hear the "How can I help you" voice. Next, let's go engage in combat with the warrior.
Be gone!
All the voices that you have heard so far are the default voices that are configured on these characters when you install the template content. Let's go ahead and do some custom voices now. To make custom voices, I am going to look under the Resources Voices folder here and find the Voice Profile folder. You can see all of the different voice profiles that are included by default, and there is a fairly good selection of both male and female voices to choose from. But now we are going to create our own custom voices based on that Juggernaut voice pack that we downloaded. So I will right-click in this folder and choose Create AnyRPG Voice Profile, and I'll call this First Voice Profile Merchant. Let's look at the inspector, and we can see that it is totally empty right now. I'm going to leave most of these character voices alone. The sections that we're interested in are Start Vendor Interact and Stop Vendor Interact. Let's lock the inspector here so that we can browse through these Juggernaut voices and drag these things in. So I'm going to grab Goodbye 1, 2, and 3, and I'll put them in the Stop Vendor Interact section. Next, I'm going to look for Safe Travels, my friend, and drag that in, as well as See Ya 1 and See Ya 2, and drag those in. Now, whenever we close the vendor window and walk away, we'll get one of these particular voice clips randomly chosen. Let's go to the Start Vendor Interact, and we'll pull in some clips there. How about Business or Pleasure? How can I help you? Let's talk about gold, selling or buying, and no discounts here. That's pretty good. Next, let's go ahead and make a new voice profile for the warrior, and we'll do that using the Juggernaut voices. So I'm going to once again right-click in the voice profile folder and go to Create AnyRPG Voice Profile, and I'm going to call this one Warrior. I'm going to lock the inspector. I have to make sure that I give this actually the resource name of Warrior as well, because AnyRPG loads these based on this resource name, not on the file name. So I'll have to go into the merchant one as well and set the resource name there to merchant. Let's go back to the Warrior, lock the inspector, and then go to the Juggernaut Voice Pack Juggernaut 1 folder, and we'll add some warrior voices up here. We can pull in I will bury you into the aggro voice, and I will crush you into the aggro voice. How about I will rip you apart as well? So now when our character walks into aggro range, one of these clips will be chosen. Under the attack, I'm going to grab effort 1 through effort 4. These are pretty good sort of grunting sounds. Effort 5 is a little bit long, and so is effort 6, but these other ones work really good. Let's look for something that's going to work good for death and victory. For death, if the warrior dies, let's choose the Heal Me voice clip. And for victory, let's just have him laugh at our character as our character is lying on the ground. There aren't really any good clips for the warrior taking damage in this pack, so we'll just leave those empty. Now let's assign these voice profiles to the characters. And before I do that, we'll go back actually to the merchant voice profile, and I'm going to find the How Can I Help You voice and just pull that into the Start Interact. The Start Interact is the generic interaction for when you're not talking to a vendor and you get the pop-up window with more than one option in it. So we'll assign this voice profile to the warrior trainer, and he'll only ever be able to say, how can I help you? But when we assign it to the vendor, then we'll get the vendor interactions. Let's go to the Unit Profiles folder and go ahead and assign these. So for the Alchemy Supplies vendor unit, I'm going to scroll down and I will find his voice profile setting right here. And because this is the vendor, I'm going to choose Merchant as his voice profile. We'll go to the class trainer and go to the warrior class trainer, and once again I'm just going to choose Merchant as his voice profile. Finally, I'm going to go to the class and go to the Uma Warrior unit. And for his voice profile, I'm going to choose that warrior voice profile that we just created. This looks good, so let's press play and see how it sounds. Let's talk to the alchemy supplies vendor now.
How can I help you? Safe travels, my friend. Let's talk about gold. Goodbye. Selling or buying. See ya.
So those are all working good. And let's go talk to the warrior trainer now.
How can I help you? How can I help you? How can I help you?
And you can see that it's properly just playing that single generic interaction voice that we were using. Now let's go attack the other warrior and see if the voices are working.
I will bury you.
And those all worked pretty good. Now let's revive our character and make sure that the warrior is saying heal me when he dies.
I'll rip you apart. Heal me.
Perfect, so those are all working properly. If you want to make a custom voice profile for your actual player, what you can do is look under the unit profile player folder, and right now I have the Uma player unit, and you can see that he's using the male default voice profile. So if we go into the voice profile folder and we just look at the male default voice, then we have all of these attacks, take damage, jump, take fall damage, and death. The player won't scream a victory shout when he does kill any NPC, so the victory is just empty for the player, but AI guys will use that. You'll also notice that the aggro is empty for the player because the player doesn't aggro people, so there's no need for him to scream or shout whenever he begins an attack or walks into the enemy's aggro range. So that is how you can configure voice profiles using AnyRPG. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, don't forget to thumbs up the video and subscribe to the AnyRPG YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video.